The night sky above the desert was clear and endless. 1,000 stars glittered like tiny sparks on black velvet. The wind carried dry sand across the silent land, brushing against the metal walls of an old scrapyard. Inside that scrapyard lived a young engineer named Rian. He had built his small home from broken ship parts and old machines. Every night he worked on repairing drones, engines, or any machine people brought him from nearby towns. He loved machines more than people because machines were simple and honest. Rian had always dreamed of working among the stars. When he was a child, he would stare at the sky for hours and imagine building ships that could travel far beyond the solar system. But life had been unkind to him. He was poor, and the city's engineers did not accept someone without high education, so he moved to the desert to work alone, collecting parts from the scrapyard and selling small repairs to survive. It was a quiet life, and he had learned to live with the silence. That night, Ryan was fixing a small drone that belonged to a nearby farmer. The drone's wings were bent and its battery had burned out. He hummed a tune while tightening screws and wiping the dust off the metal. The air smelled of hot sand and oil. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath him. A thunderous roar filled the air and a bright light flashed across the night sky. It was not a meteor. It was too bright, too controlled. The light split into two trails and then a loud crash echoed in the distance. The shockwave knocked a few metal scraps from the shelves and Rian ducked for cover. When the rumble stopped, the desert returned to silence. The stars still shone above, but there was a faint column of smoke rising in the distance. Ryan's heart pounded. Something had crashed near his scrapyard. He grabbed his flashlight and his small toolkit, climbed into his old sandbike, and drove toward the smoke. The sandbike's engine growled softly as it cut through the dunes. The cold night air stung his face, but curiosity pushed him forward. As he neared the crash site, he saw pieces of glowing metal scattered across the sand. They were smooth and silver, nothing like any aircraft he had ever seen. When he stepped closer, the ground still felt warm. The main body of the craft was half buried in the dunes, tilted on its side. It shimmered under the starlight like liquid steel. Strange blue lights flickered along its surface, fading in and out like a heartbeat. Ryan stood still, amazed. This was no human ship. The design was too elegant, too advanced. His hands trembled as he moved closer. A small door on the side was half open, letting out a faint hiss of air. Inside, he could see soft light and what looked like a small control chamber. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. The air smelled clean, almost sweet, and there was a soft humming sound. The walls were smooth and curved, filled with symbols that glowed faintly. Ryan ran his fingers across one of them and felt warmth like a pulse. Suddenly, he heard a weak sound from behind a broken panel. It was a voice, soft and tired. He turned quickly and saw someone lying on the floor. It was a young woman, or at least she looked human, but her skin shimmered faintly with a silver glow. Her hair was white like snow, and her clothes were made of a thin metallic fabric that clung to her form. Ryan froze. The woman opened her eyes slowly. They were bright blue, glowing faintly in the dark. She spoke something in a language he did not understand. Her voice was soft but full of urgency. He stepped closer and knelt beside her. "I do not understand," he said gently. "Are you hurt?" She blinked and touched a small device near her ear. The device made a soft beep, and then she spoke again, this time in broken but clear English. "Help, my ship is damaged. I need help." Rian nodded quickly. "You crashed. I can help repair, but I do not know this kind of ship." She tried to sit up but winced in pain. "My name is Mira. The systems are failing. I need power restored before they track me." Ryan frowned. "Who will track you?" She shook her head weakly. "No time. Please help me fix the core." Ryan helped her sit up carefully. Her hands were warm but strange, almost like touching smooth glass. He looked around and found a glowing energy module under a cracked panel. It was leaking light, flickering wildly. He had no idea how it worked, but he could tell it was the ship's power source. His mind raced with ideas. "I can try to stabilize it," he said. "I need to close the circuit." Mira nodded weakly. "You are human, yes. You understand machines. You can do this." Ryan took out his small toolkit and worked with steady hands. He used a piece of wire, a metal clip, and part of his sandbike's battery connector to build a temporary link. The blue light brightened and the humming of the ship grew stronger. The air inside the cabin became warmer. Mira's eyes widened slightly as the control panel lit up again. "You fixed it," she whispered. "How did you know?" Ryan smiled faintly. Machines talk if you listen. You just need to know how. She studied him for a moment as if trying to understand more than his words. Then she said softly, "You are different." Ryan laughed lightly. "People tell me that." For a few minutes, they both worked to stabilize the rest of the ship. Mira guided him with calm directions and he followed her lead. Her knowledge was beyond anything he had ever seen. When she touched the ship's surface, symbols responded to her, glowing brighter. She explained that her ship used living circuits, made from materials that responded to thoughts. Ryan could hardly believe it. After an hour, the main systems were back online, though only at minimal power. Mira stood slowly, her strength returning. She walked to the control seat and placed her hand on a glowing circle. A holographic display appeared, showing the sky above Earth and several red dots moving toward the planet. "They found me," she whispered. Ryan frowned. "Who found you?" "My people," she said quietly. "They are not here to rescue me. They will capture me and destroy anyone who helps." Ryan looked at her, unsure if she was serious. "Why would they do that?" She turned to him, her eyes calm but sad. "Because I ran away." Ryan felt a strange chill. "Ran away from what?" "From my fate," she said simply. "From a bond I did not choose." He did not understand what she meant, but her tone told him it was serious. He looked at the sky, then at the ship. "If they are coming, we need to hide this place or move the ship." "Can it fly?" "Not yet," she said. "The thrusters are damaged. I need a few days to repair them." Ryan nodded. "Then we will fix it. My scrapyard has tools and parts. You can stay there." Mira looked surprised. "You would help a stranger from the stars?" Ryan smiled. "I fix things that are broken. Right now, that includes you and your ship." She looked at him for a long moment and then nodded. "Then I will trust you, human Ryan." They worked together to conceal the ship. Ryan covered the wreckage with sand nets and placed metal debris around it to make it look like an old crash. Mira adjusted her translator to understand more human words, and Ryan learned a few of hers in return. When the first light of dawn touched the desert, the crash site looked silent and empty again. Ryan guided Mira back to his scrapyard, where he prepared a small resting place for her. She was exhausted and soon fell asleep. Ryan sat outside, staring at the sky where the crash light had come from. He felt a strange mix of wonder and worry. Something inside him told him that this night had changed everything. He did not know who Mira truly was or why her people were after her. But he knew one thing. The stars no longer felt distant. As the sun rose over the endless dunes, Ryan whispered to himself that this might be the beginning of something far greater than he had ever imagined. Somewhere beyond the horizon, other worlds existed, and one of them had just crashed into his life. The sun rose high above the golden desert, painting the dunes in shades of orange and gold. The heat shimmered across the land as small winds carried waves of sand over the quiet scrapyard. Inside the yard, Ryan was already awake, working on a large power converter. The sound of his tools echoed softly between the metal walls. It was an ordinary morning, but his mind was far from calm. He kept thinking about the strange woman who now rested inside his small workshop. Her name was Mira, and she was not from Earth. Even after a night of rest, Ryan still struggled to believe what he had seen. Her silver skin, glowing eyes, and the strange ship that could heal itself like a living thing were beyond anything he had known. Yet she looked peaceful when she slept, almost human in her calmness. Ryan wiped the sweat from his forehead and turned when he heard the sound of footsteps. Mira stepped into the sunlight, wearing one of Ryan's spare coats to cover her shining clothes. Her silver glow had faded slightly, making her blend better with the human world. She looked around, curious about the strange piles of metal and engines. "This is where you live," she said softly. Ryan nodded with a small smile. "Yes. Not much, but it works. I fix broken machines here, sometimes old drones or ground cars." Mira ran her hand along the surface of an old ship wing. "You build with your hands. That is rare among your kind now." Ryan looked at her curiously. "You know much about humans?" She nodded. "I learned from far away. Our observers study your world. You are still young as a race, but you are brave. You reach for the stars even when you cannot touch them." Her words made Ryan pause. "If you know so much about us, why come here?" Mira looked toward the horizon, her eyes distant. I did not come here by choice. I was running. I needed a place where no one could find me. Your world is small and quiet. I thought I could hide here. Ryan frowned. Hide from who? She hesitated. From my people. From the Valen Empire. I am of their royal bloodline. They want me to bond with someone I do not love, for the sake of power and control. Ryan's eyes widened slightly. You are a princess? Mira looked uncomfortable. A title only. It means little to me now. I wanted to live free, to choose my path. That is why I escaped. But they will come for me, they always do. Ryan leaned against the workbench, trying to make sense of it all. If they find you here, they might attack this place. That could bring danger to the people nearby. Mira nodded slowly. Yes, that is why my ship must be repaired quickly. Once it flies again, I will leave before they arrive. Ryan's heart felt heavy, but he nodded. Then we start today. They spent the day working together. Ryan brought out his best tools while Mira guided him through the alien technology. She explained how the ship's systems worked, showing him the smooth metal plates that could bend and seal like living skin. The circuits glowed softly, as if they were veins filled with light. Ryan was amazed. Every moment he learned something new. Mira admired his skill and focus. He was not afraid of strange things. He asked questions with the curiosity of a child, but worked with the calm of a craftsman. When one of the ship's energy conduits broke into sparks, he did not panic. Instead, he used old human tools and clever tricks to create a stable link. Mira watched in quiet wonder. You think like one of us, she said softly. You see patterns where others see chaos. Ryan smiled a little. Machines have rules. Once you find them, everything makes sense. Mira nodded. That is what I thought once. But life does not always follow rules. As the sun sank below the horizon, they took a break beside a small campfire outside the scrapyard. Ryan cooked simple food while Mira sat quietly, studying the stars. Her eyes followed the constellations with careful thought. Your stars look different from my world, she said. Yet they feel the same. When I was a child, I would look at the sky and dream of freedom. Now I have it, but I do not know where to go. Ryan looked up too. Freedom is strange. Sometimes when you finally get it, you do not know what to do with it. Mira smiled faintly. You speak as if you understand. He nodded. I do. I left the city because I could not fit in. I wanted to build things my way, not follow rules made by others. People called me foolish, but I wanted peace. Maybe that is the same for you. Mira turned to him. Perhaps it is. For a moment, silence filled the night. The fire flickered, and a soft wind moved across the sand. Mira reached out and touched the flame carefully. The fire bent toward her hand but did not burn. It glowed brighter for a moment, responding to her touch. Ryan stared in surprise. How did you do that? She smiled gently. Energy listens if you know how to speak to it. The fire is alive in its own way. We learn to feel its rhythm. Ryan shook his head in disbelief. Humans would call that impossible. Mira looked at him with calm eyes. Humans call many things impossible until they do them. They both laughed softly. For the first time, Ryan saw her smile fully. It was warm and kind, not royal or distant. For a few moments, it felt like they were not from different worlds. They were just two people sharing a quiet night under the stars. Later, as they returned to the workshop, Mira stopped and looked at the sky again. A faint red light blinked far above the horizon. Her face turned serious. They are close, she whispered. Ryan followed her gaze. You mean your people? She nodded. That light is a patrol beacon. They are searching this sector. Ryan clenched his fists. Then we have to hurry. They worked late into the night. Ryan connected power conduits while Mira recalibrated the ship's flight systems. Her hands moved fast, guided by both memory and instinct. The air was filled with the hum of power as energy lines began to glow again. The ship slowly came back to life. Ryan noticed that the ship seemed to respond to Mira's emotions. When she was calm, the lights pulsed softly. When she grew anxious, the glow flickered sharply. It was as if the ship could feel her heart. During a short rest, Mira looked at Ryan and said, "Your machines obey you because you understand them. You fix them not only with tools but with care. That is rare." Ryan shrugged. "Machines are like people. If you treat them right, they last longer." Mira smiled. "Perhaps that is why you were meant to find me." Ryan looked confused. "What do you mean?" She shook her head gently. "It is nothing. A thought only." They returned to work, and by dawn, the ship's systems were half restored. The main engine, however, remained damaged. It needed special materials Ryan did not have. He decided to search the nearby trade station the next day to find parts that might match. Mira agreed to stay hidden until his return. Before sunrise, Ryan walked outside and looked at the horizon. The sky was pale gold, and the first light touched the desert dunes. Mira stood beside him, silent for a long time. Finally, she said, "If they find me, you must not protect me. It will only bring you harm." Ryan turned to her. "I cannot promise that. You needed help and I gave it. I will not stop now." Mira looked at him with a mix of sadness and admiration. "You humans are strange. You fight for others without gain. You act without fear." Ryan smiled slightly. "Maybe that is what makes us human." She nodded. "Yes. That is why your kind will go far one day." The morning wind brushed against them, carrying the scent of sand and metal. Mira's eyes softened as she looked at Ryan. He did not know it yet, but she had already made a choice deep in her heart. The traditions of her people said that when one found a spirit strong enough to face the unknown, the bond of eternity could begin. She had seen that strength in this quiet human engineer. As the day began, Ryan prepared his sand bike and packed his tools. He promised Mira he would return with what was needed to finish the repairs. She watched him ride off across the dunes, the sun shining on his back. When he disappeared over the horizon, she placed her hand on her heart and whispered something in her language, a vow known only to her kind. Far above the sky, a Valen scout ship moved silently through orbit, scanning for her lost signal. The red light blinked faster, locking onto the desert below. The hunters had found her trail, and so the quiet desert, which had kept her safe for a short while, was about to become a battlefield once again. The desert was silent under the early morning sun, the golden dunes stretching endlessly in every direction. Ryan rode his sand bike with determination, the wind carrying grit into his face as he searched for the trade station that might have the parts he needed to repair Mira's ship. His mind was full of questions. Who were her people? Why was she hunted? And why had he felt an unexplainable sense of responsibility toward this strange woman? Meanwhile, Mira remained in the scrapyard watching the horizon. The silence of the desert gave her a false sense of security. She could feel it in her core, a ripple of danger approaching. Her people were relentless. The Valen Empire never gave up on retrieving one of their own. Mira had run from her destiny, but destiny had its own ways of finding her. Hours passed as Ryan navigated the dunes. Finally, he reached a small outpost on the edge of a dried-up riverbed. The trade station was modest, a few metal huts surrounded by old storage crates. Inside, Ryan found a few engineers and merchants who dealt in rare mechanical parts. He explained what he needed, carefully avoiding details about the alien ship. The merchants were curious but agreed to help him find energy conduits and plasma stabilizers that might work. Back at the scrapyard, Mira continued to study her ship. She ran her hands along the glowing panels, speaking in her own language, trying to communicate with it. The ship responded faintly, its lights pulsing in rhythm with her voice. She paused, closing her eyes, listening for distant signals. That's when she noticed the first warning sign. A faint red glow appeared far above the horizon. Her heart sank. "They are coming," she whispered to herself. Mira quickly moved to the ship's cabin and checked its defenses. Some systems were still offline, but a small energy shield could be activated to hide the ship temporarily. She triggered it, a faint shimmer covering the metallic surface. It would not last long, but it might buy her some time. Suddenly, the ground trembled as loud vibrations echoed across the desert. Mira's eyes widened as a group of armored ships descended from the sky. The hunters had arrived. Their engines roared like thunder, kicking up clouds of sand. Ryan had no idea how close danger had come. The hunters moved swiftly, their landing gear touching the dunes with precise force. They were tall, armored, and carried weapons that glowed with energy. Mira stepped out, standing firmly between the ships and her hidden vessel. Her eyes glowed softly as she activated a small energy staff, a weapon of her own design. Rian's heart pounded when he returned from the trade station and saw the scene. The hunter's red light swept the dunes, searching for Mira. He did not think for long. He ran toward the scrapyard, grabbing whatever tools and equipment he could carry. Mira noticed him immediately. "Ryan, you should not come closer. They will shoot. I cannot leave you," he shouted. "I will help." The hunters saw him and turned their weapons toward him. One of them fired, and the energy bolt struck the sand near his feet, sending shards flying. Ryan ducked and rolled, reaching the cover of a large metal crate. His heart raced, but he knew he had to act. Mira moved with precision, deflecting energy blasts with her staff. She was fast, her movements fluid and practiced. Yet she was outnumbered. The hunters circled around, their armor glinting under the sun. She knew she could not fight them all for long. Rian studied the scene quickly. He noticed a pile of metal debris nearby that could be used as a diversion. With careful aim, he pulled a cable from his toolkit and connected it to an old energy core. Sparks flew as he created a small explosion, sending a bright flash toward the hunters. They faltered, giving Mira a chance to strike with her staff. The energy pulses knocked one hunter back, giving them both a moment to breathe. "We need to move the ship," Mira shouted. Rian nodded. "I can help guide you." Together they ran toward the hidden ship. Mira activated the remaining systems, her fingers dancing across glowing panels. Ryan followed her instructions, connecting temporary circuits to stabilize the engine. The hunters regained their composure and charged toward them, firing energy bolts. Ryan dodged, using crates and debris for cover. Mira blocked shots with her staff, her focus unwavering. At last, the ship powered up. The engine hummed to life and the energy shields flickered steadily. Mira looked at Ryan. "We can fly now, but I need you inside to help me control it." Ryan nodded and jumped into the cabin. Together, they prepared for liftoff. Mira guided the ship over the dunes as the hunters fired relentlessly. Ryan adjusted power settings, stabilizing the ship against sudden jolts. Dust and sand swirled around them, but the ship lifted smoothly into the air. The hunters attempted to follow, but Mira engaged a short-range stealth field. The ship shimmered and became nearly invisible against the desert sky. Ryan marveled at the technology, amazed by how quickly she adapted. "You make this look easy," he said. Mira glanced at him. "Experience. My people train from a young age. But even so, the courage to act without fear is rare. Humans have that courage." Rian felt a mix of pride and fear. "I do not feel brave right now." "Bravery is not the absence of fear," Mira said calmly. "It is acting despite it." The hunters landed near the scrapyard, scanning for any sign of their prey. They could not see the ship, but their red sensors flickered, indicating a faint energy signature. Mira and Rian navigated toward the mountains at the edge of the desert. The terrain offered hiding spots and natural cover. As they flew, Mira explained more about her situation. "The Valen Empire chooses mates for political power. They expect loyalty and obedience. I refused. That is why I ran. Choosing a path of freedom is dangerous among my people." Ryan listened carefully. "You ran because you wanted to decide your own life." She nodded. "Yes, I cannot follow orders that bind my heart." "You understand that, do you?" Ryan hesitated. "I think I do. I left the city to follow my own path. I wanted to build my life without rules that did not make sense." Mira looked at him with admiration. "Then perhaps that is why we are here together. Your courage is rare. Your spirit is what humans possess that others do not. That is why you can help me." Rian felt a strange warmth in his chest. It was more than pride or excitement. He did not understand it yet, but he wanted to protect her no matter the cost. The desert fell behind them as they reached a hidden canyon. The ship hovered silently between the cliffs, and Mira deactivated the stealth field. Ryan looked around in awe. The canyon was narrow and winding, perfect for hiding a ship. "We will stay here for now," Mira said. "I need to repair the main engine fully. Then we can leave this planet if needed." Rian nodded. I can help. I have tools and parts in the sand bike and workshop. We can work together. Mira smiled faintly. I like that. You are human, yet you think beyond your limits. That is rare. You could be more than you know. They spent the next hours unloading equipment and setting up a temporary workshop in the canyon. Ryan connected cables and tested circuits while Mira guided him, explaining which components were sensitive and which could be replaced with earth materials. They worked in silence for a time, communicating with gestures and soft words. As night fell, Mira finally allowed herself a moment of rest. She looked at the stars above the canyon walls, her glowing eyes reflecting constellations she had not seen in years. She whispered softly, thinking of her home world, of the choices she had made, and of the human beside her who had risked everything to help her. Rian sat nearby, watching the ship glow faintly under the starlight. He realized that life had changed forever. A simple desert engineer had been thrown into a battle between worlds, yet he did not regret it. For the first time, he felt a connection to something larger, something beyond the stars he had always dreamed about. Above them, the Valen Empire scouts scanned the desert, unaware that their quarry was already moving, alive and preparing to escape. The hunt was far from over. But for now, Ryan and Mira had won a small victory. They had survived the first wave of hunters, and the ship was closer to being ready for flight. As the night deepened, Rian looked at Mira and said softly, "Tomorrow we finish the repairs. Then we can decide our next move." Mira nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "Yes. Tomorrow we take the first real step toward freedom." The desert lay quiet once again, but the stars above held the promise of adventure, danger, and discoveries that neither of them could have imagined. The morning sun rose over the hidden canyon, casting golden light across jagged rocks and the glowing ship. Mira and Rian had stayed awake most of the night, reviewing the systems of the alien craft. The ship's core hummed steadily, but the main engine still needed careful work. Every panel and conduit had to be handled with precision, or the entire system could fail. Ryan had never seen a machine like this, yet he felt a strange confidence. He trusted his hands and his mind, and Mira guided him with calm instructions. "Ryan, the engine's primary core is unstable," Mira said softly, her glowing eyes fixed on the panels. "We must balance energy output before we can test flight. Otherwise it could explode." Ryan nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I can manage the energy lines. I just need you to stabilize the control panels." Mira stepped closer to the engine, placing her hands on the smooth metal surfaces. The panels responded instantly, lighting up as if they were alive. "Focus," she whispered. "Listen to the machine. It is alive. It speaks to those who pay attention." Ryan adjusted the cables connecting conduits to the stabilizers he had brought from the trade station. Sparks danced along the metal edges, but he did not flinch. He felt a strange rhythm in the energy, almost like a heartbeat. Mira noticed and nodded. "You can feel it. That is rare. Most cannot." As they worked, the canyon echoed with the soft hum of the ship's systems. The desert outside was still, but Ryan knew it would not last. The hunters would be back, relentless as ever. He stole a glance at Mira. Her expression was calm, but there was a quiet tension in her shoulders. She was more than a skilled pilot or princess. She carried the weight of her people, and now she trusted him with her life. Hours passed in careful work. Ryan adjusted wires, repaired conduits, and tested energy output. Mira recalibrated sensors and controls, guiding him with gentle corrections. The ship responded to their combined effort, the lights pulsing steadily, the engine vibrating softly. For a moment it felt like they were one with the machine, moving and thinking as a single entity. Mira finally stepped back. "It is stable enough to test small flight maneuvers. Are you ready?" Ryan wiped his hands and nodded. "Let's do it." The ship rose a few meters above the canyon floor. Dust swirled around them as the engines roared softly. Mira guided it carefully, showing Ryan how to respond to the controls. He listened, learned, and soon their movements were coordinated. The ship hovered, turned, and darted through the narrow canyon with surprising ease. "You are a fast learner," Mira said, a faint smile on her lips. "I am learning from the best," Ryan replied. Their moment of triumph was cut short when the scanners on the ship beeped. Red signals blinked on the display, marking several fast-approaching ships. The hunters had returned. Mira's face hardened. "They are relentless. We cannot stay here much longer. Ryan took a deep breath. Then we fight or we escape. What do you want to do? She looked at him thoughtfully. I will not surrender. If we can escape, we must. But I need your help to create a diversion. We must show them courage, not fear. Ryan nodded. Then we do it together. They prepared the ship, rigging temporary defenses and energy shields. Mira activated a short-range stealth system to hide the main energy signature while Ryan connected small explosive charges to scattered rocks near the canyon entrance. When the hunters approached, the explosions would create confusion and give them time to flee. As the red ships descended, Mira focused on the controls while Ryan counted the seconds. The first hunter ship landed near the canyon mouth, scanning for movement. Ryan triggered the charges. Dust, sand, and debris erupted into the air, forcing the hunters to slow down. Mira maneuvered the ship with precision, gliding above the canyon floor and avoiding enemy fire. Ryan watched in amazement as she moved, her grace and skill unmatched. Yet she was not invincible. Energy blasts struck near the ship, shaking it violently. He held on, his mind racing with calculations. Every moment was dangerous, yet he felt alive more than he ever had. After several tense minutes, the hunters retreated slightly, unsure of the terrain and the ship's exact location. Mira breathed a sigh of relief. We have time, she said, her voice calm but firm. Ryan smiled faintly. Your people are good at hunting, but we humans can think fast. Maybe that counts for something. Mira looked at him with admiration. It counts for much more than you know. Your courage is rare. You risked yourself without knowing the odds. That is what makes humans strong. Not your weapons or ships, but your spirit. Ryan felt a warmth in his chest. I just did what felt right. She stepped closer. And that is why you are different. You are not afraid to act. That is why I trust you. The day passed in careful repairs. The engine's core was finally stable, and the flight controls were fully responsive. Mira taught Ryan how to operate basic systems of the ship, showing him how to guide energy flow, adjust shields, and read navigation signals. He absorbed everything quickly, impressing her with his ability to adapt. As evening fell, they took a brief rest on the canyon floor. Mira watched the stars, her glowing eyes reflecting constellations she had not seen in years. The stars are the same everywhere, she said softly. But they feel different when you are free. Ryan looked at her. You are free now, at least for a moment. You choose your path, not your people. Mira nodded. Yes, but freedom comes with responsibility. If I am caught, I endanger everyone who helps me. That includes you. Ryan reached out and placed a hand on hers. Then we face it together. You do not have to do this alone. Mira's eyes softened. You are brave, human. I have seen many races in the galaxy, but none like yours. You fight for others without asking for reward. That is what makes your people special. Ryan smiled. Maybe that is why I built machines. They are like people, but simpler. I can fix them, and I can protect them. She studied him, her eyes glowing softly. Perhaps that is why we were meant to meet. You are strong in ways even you do not realize. You have the human spirit that can withstand challenges others cannot. Ryan looked at her, confused but pleased.
I just did what I thought was right. Mira smiled faintly.
And that is enough. Sometimes right is stronger than skill or power. That is why I trust you with my life. Night fell fully over the canyon. The stars shone brilliantly, reflecting off the ship's metallic surface. Mira and Ryan worked quietly, making final adjustments to the engines and energy systems. The ship hummed steadily, alive and ready. They had survived the hunters, repaired the vessel, and learned to trust each other. Mira finally allowed herself a moment of reflection. She thought about her home, her people, and the traditions that bound them. Choosing an eternal mate was sacred in her culture, but she had seen courage, kindness, and strength in Ryan. Perhaps the bond she sought was not in titles or wealth, but in spirit. Ryan watched her quietly. He did not know what she thought exactly, but he felt a connection that went beyond words. He had never imagined a life like this, a human engineer in the desert helping an alien princess escape her destiny. And yet it felt natural. The first light of dawn began to touch the canyon walls. Mira looked at Ryan with quiet determination. Tomorrow we will finish the repairs completely. Then we will decide where to go. Freedom is within reach, but we must be ready for anything. Ryan nodded. I am ready. Whatever comes, we face it together. The desert lay calm, hiding their secret. But far above, the Valen Empire's scouts continued to search. They would not give up. But Mira and Ryan had shown that courage, intelligence, and trust could overcome even the most dangerous adversaries. For the first time, both of them believed that they could not only survive but also shape their own destiny. The human spirit had proven itself once more, strong enough to stand against fear, danger, and the unknown. And so, the canyon remained a silent witness to a story of courage, trust, and the first steps toward freedom beyond the stars.